meeting. Our meeting is called to order. Do we have any public comments? Any cards? No cards. Okay, thank you. Items for individual consideration. Item A, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on the January 17th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Linda
Sorry.
Anderson.
Ms. Anderson?
Motion by
Motion by
Kirsten.
Thank you.
Second
I'll
by
remember
Linda.
to say that like it was
Thank you.
suggested. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Motion carries. Item B, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to install a vinyl sign showing the business name and logo on the front window and a 63 by 31 sign showing the business name and contact information on the back of the building at 222 West Main Street. Do I need to read the case too? Am I good?
I don't have the.
Okay.
So this is for 222 LB Wagner Surveying, and I'm going to let her tell you what they're doing, but they're just changing the window graphics on the front and then adding a sign to the back. And Kate Wagner is here and can speak on the case.
Good morning.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
My name's Kate Wagner. I'm at 222 West Main Street here in Denison. And yeah, Donna pretty much said it. We're just wanting to add our logo to our front window. And then since there's so much more traffic on the back side of the building, we want to go ahead and put up a sign on the back as well. So that's about it.
Are you changing out all the graphics on the front or just the?
No, just the logo. And that's it. And then taking off one name. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to see.
Do you have any questions or?
Any questions or a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve the addition of signage at 222 West Main.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anderson.
Thank you.
Already.
Guess it's all unanimous.
Okay, we had a motion by Kurt and a second by Linda. Ms. Anderson. Okay, item C, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to install a 4x14 metal sign with green and black lettering on a white background at 101 East Main Street.
Okay, so this is for the Green Growler, and they are going to use the same sign and add new vinyl, and he is here to answer any questions. So you need to say your name and address.
Hi, sorry, I'm Dennis McCabe with Green Growler at 101 East Main Suite 135. We're taking over the old Tupelo location and just reusing their signage.
I drove by and noted that it says Green Growler
Mhm.
now. So is that what we're?
That's what
approving?
you're voting on. So it's a white sign that goes on the top of the building, not the banner that's shown in that photo. It's the one to the right.
We're excited to have you guys over at the depot, Dennis.
Huh?
We're excited to have you over at the depot, Dennis.
Oh, I'm excited to be there. We should be opening the end of the month. Any questions? Okay.
Any motion?
I make a motion to approve the addition of signage at 101 East Main Suite 135.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Solomon and a second by Mr. Kurt.
Chikowski.
Chikowski, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Item D, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to paint a mural on the underpass leading to the Eisenhower birthplace. Let me go back, I apologize. So we had a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is my second time to do this. I told you guys have to keep me accountable here. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too. So, this is a new mural that we are proposing. It's a Rotary project, but I'm coordinating the effort with them because I've worked with the artists before. So it's a mural by Arcee, who has been with us before and has painted the Eisenhower Leadership mural and the TV Munson mural. And so he's been pre-approved. The design committee has approved this mural and approved everything. And so it's now come to you for your consideration. I would like to mention that John Akers at the Eisenhower birthplace has reviewed it for historical accuracy. So it depicts both visits to Denison. So that is the one going from this direction to the birthplace and has the general on the left side. And then as you go through it, that is coming from the birthplace back toward town, and that is the president as he received the key to the city. And go ahead and, yeah, that shows the bunting at the top, which is my favorite part. I think it looks really nice to dress that up. As an aside, you'll see the center black and yellow stripes for safety, and our Public Works Department is addressing that to get that looking better, and also some safety issues. So it's part of the Ike Hike, which you may remember has some kiosk in Forest Park and other points of interest that are going to be expanded for people to see when we can get maybe some QR codes and some things like that. But they're there nonetheless. And so this will be a nice dress up on the way to the birthplace. Do you have any questions, something I didn't cover?
Is that railroad property?
Yes, and we have talked to the railroad about permission to do it. So it's railroad right-of-way, I believe is the proper term.
I have a question, mainly just point of information. I'm assuming, especially on the Where Legends Are Born panel, and I realize it's a very huge expanse of concrete, but that foliage must be computer generated because that's asking for a whole lot of detail in a finished mural, even at that size. But as I say, it's mainly a question of information.
I can assume that it is, I don't know, but he is very accurate in
Right.
his previous depictions.
No,
And
I
so,
appreciate
yeah.
the quality of his work, to be
Yeah.
sure. As I say, and I know that there was the intent of the foliage blending into the foliage around it, which I think is great.
Right.
But as I say, just informationally, I'm wondering about it.
And I've never asked him to that level of how it comes about, but I do know that he's taken these at least from photographs.
Right.
And then he studies the situation. He puts a lot of effort into the history, and then he interprets it. But they are based on photographs.
And does additional money need to be raised besides the Rotary Commission?
No, from what I understand, they are looking at this on a larger scale and would like to maybe do some maintenance around the area. But this should be all funded by Rotary. They are having their final vote Thursday, so.
Who's the artist on this?
RC.
RC, okay.
My only concern is the narrowness of it. It's a beautiful mural, but as long as those safety concerns are addressed, like you were talking about in the center, because people are going to be looking at that, and that's such a tight, narrow
Right.
underpass that, just some added
Are you,
visual security. Or
While-
not security, but
while he's painting?
signage, yeah.
And
Like
also
the-
just driving through.
So while he's painting, we're hoping to work with the Public Works Department to block it off. That's to be confirmed.
Well,
But,
it's gonna have to with the scaffolding, it's gonna go up there to get that top
yeah.
part.
Once he paints it upside down.
And then on the, and then on the, it is a narrow intersection, but I've stood down there in preparation for this, and people come buzzing through there really quick, and so there's not going to be anything on the inside painted.
And that's city right away, right? The railroad, I realize, is not, the
Yeah.
trestle, but the road itself is city right away.
I don't understand all the ins and outs of it. I
City
don't-
owns a street, but the railroad owns a bridge, isn't it?
Exactly. Then we might need to take responsibility for some caution signage at both ends, going in, some pretty
Right.
demonstrative and emphatic signage, I
Right.
would say.
We will work with Public Works, who is accustomed to doing
Perfect.
things like that.
Yeah, the center part really needs to have some better reflective.
Right. And that's what we noticed when we when we prepared for this work, that the mural is going to be beautiful, but then that center part is not so much. And also, along with this, Public Works has recently made that a three-way stop, which is much safer, I feel. And
more
so it's been improved in that respect also.
Further questions? We have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the addition of a mural at the entrance of the underpass leading to the Eisenhower birthplace.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we have a motion by Mr. Krakowski. Is that
I think there's a
Kronkowski?
barnyard in the winter with a chick and a cow on skis.
I'm gonna get it
Chickowski.
right. That's good. And a second by Ms. Solomon. Okay,
And a unanimous vote.
okay. Item E, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to install a rear entrance, new vinyl windows with bronze frames, a new 3x7 fiberglass door, and a board and batten panel at 506, 510 West Main.
So that's quite a mouthful.
It is, it's quite a mouthful.
We have improvements being made to the back of these two structures, and then also to the front. They have, Charlie Scherer is here to speak on their behalf, and he's designed this. He's worked with the fire marshal also, so as you see on the right-hand side, that's the drawing on the window for the entrance to the upstairs, and also the fire suppression system, and I'll let him explain that. We talked about the windows, and I've got they requested vinyl windows, and I put in here that Rosin did not recommend vinyl, and so I asked her for a lesson. Would you like to ask your question?
Sure. My question is, I know Mr. Scher is very familiar with it. Why vinyl instead of the Rosen recommendations about aluminum-clad wood to be in a historic part of the historic section of the city?
So I will let Charlie come up in a minute and give his point of view, but I knew that that was the preservationist point of view. I just didn't understand why, and so I asked Rosen to give me more information on there. So if you'll pardon me, I'll read this as I just received it. So it's less about the configuration and more about the dimensions of the parts of the windows. Historic windows have depth to them. Each part of the window has its own dimension that vinyl windows cannot replicate. The National Park Service does not allow vinyl to be used in tax credit projects because the replacement windows cannot replicate the historic feel of the historic windows. When we advise clients about replacements, we say that the windows should have simulated putty bevels where glass meets the sash, a panning system that replicates the historic brick mold, and frame and sash dimensions that match the existing windows, or if the historic sash dimensions that match the existing windows, or if the historic windows are not extant, dimensions that match the historic windows typical of the type of buildings. Vinyl windows are also not known to last. They'll be replaced in probably about every 15 years. So I can repeat any of that you want to hear, but I think it offers an explanation. Charlie and I have had the discussion about our design guidelines. Our design guidelines refer to that, and we've had the discussion if we should consider them because it's a much less expensive option. Wood windows are difficult to replicate, and so I guess we should have that conversation later, but I can tell you that the gentlemen that are doing the Katy Depot have gone to recreating on their own a window, and they've done a good job of it, so it will simulate the original windows. But not everybody has that number of windows to do, and so they don't go to the level of to understand it like they have, and so it's not as possible. So the aluminum windows are an option that preservationists will allow. And if you'll allow me, I'll get Mr. Charles Scher. You might remember him from our training the other day.
Very informative.
As always, we're informative. State your name.
Charlie Shearer, 415 West Main in Denison. And I'll be happy to address, you want to start with windows? Is that where we want to start, or we want a description of what we're actually going to do on the entire building?
Yeah, the overall first, I think.
Okay. Let's start with the entrance. This building is segregated. 506 has a masonry firewall in between it. There is an opening that goes into 508. But then 508 and 510 are one large space. That was the space that Jay Conley occupied with the vintage car dealership that he had there. Our planning is to make those bottom 3 floors retail, giving us a total of 9,000 square feet on the ground level. As of today, the tenant has 2 very serious tenants that are already talking to him about signing leases, and so we're in the process of trying to get permitted so we can get started with construction. The top floor originally was going to be 2 lofts over 506, and the owner of the building was going to make 508, 510 his apartment, which would have given him about a 6,000-foot apartment on top of those 2. He's a very smart man, so he soon realized that 6 lofts would generate quite a bit of revenue stream for him on a monthly basis versus him living in 6,000 feet that he really didn't need. So we've now produced a plan that will give us 8 lofts on the upper levels on all 3 buildings. We've been through the process of working with Ms. Floyd and with Harlan. That's the new one. We've worked with 2 different fire marshals since we started this project to get approval. Now, the requirement for these lofts for ingress, we needed 2 staircases, one going down the back, one coming down to the front, to the street. So what we're doing is between, just to the west of the demising wall between 506 and 508, that first panel will be taken out and we'll put a door in there. We'd rather use a decorative, more residential type door than a storefront glass door, since we're using it for going up to the residential lofts up there. Now, our standpipe for the sprinkler system is also going to be located in that space, and we need an FDC for the fire department. So what the fire department and I have talked about doing is we will build a wall up probably around 42 inches off of the ground, and that will give them enough room to put the FDC in there, and then we can go in and trim around that. We can paint that to match the other trim on the door or the colors of the brick. We can try to match that as close as possible. We'll go in and put another panel of glass, so there will be glazing on top of that wall that will go up to the top of that mullion that separates those 2 panes of glass there that you see. And that will be the entrance off of the street for the lofts. They will be addressed as 508, Suite 201 through 208. Any questions about that portion of what we're trying to do? Okay, let's go to the rear drawings there. Go back to the okay. Where I have those windows sketched in are actually where Haydock Block was added, or CMU was added. So those were windows once upon a time. And so we're taking that CMU out, and we're going to go back into that space, and that provides windows for the lofts across the back of the building. You're looking at the 506, the one on the left where the dumpster is there. That is actually over 506. Those 3 windows. So that's going to be over 506. That particular overhead door will be eliminated. So we're going to move the wall in approximately 6 feet from the back wall to create a covered entrance. So there will be doors going in, double doors going into the retail space, and then as you walk in, you turn to the left, and there will be another door that will access the staircase that goes up the back to the lofts. We felt like that if we have tenants who are parking in the parking spots on the back of the building there in the parking lot, that if they're coming in inclement weather, they're going to get soaked trying to get the door open. So they come in. We felt like that the door is going to be facing east, so when the storms come in from the southwest, that have protection that they could access to the upper loft. So that overhead door will be gone. That header that's across the top of that, which is steel, will remain intact, and we'll preserve that. And our ceiling will be flush with the bottom of that, and it will go back into the space. There's also another one of those headers on top of those 3 windows, just above it, which is painted gray. So we're going to try to go back and match the one on the bottom with the one on the top to maintain that. Those windows that you see on the picture to the right, those are just new windows that will be cut into the back. The overhead door and the walk door that are there, at this point in time, are going to remain as is. As far as windows are concerned, I know that the consultant has a different opinion, obviously, than I do with windows. Let's back up to when we actually started using vinyl windows in construction methods and why. They mainly became popular first of all, with residential construction. Up until this time, we were forced to use aluminum windows. And there's some of those aluminum windows, excuse me, on Main Street. Most of the frames were anodized, they were silver, they were ugly, they had no profile to them. They didn't resemble anything historical. They didn't resemble anything that anybody wanted to put in a house. But that's really all we had to use at that point in time, unless we wanted to use wood windows. Now, I'll just give you an example of where we are right now. Let me back up. We went to the vinyl window because the vinyl window was an option within a budget that looked as close to wood windows as we could get without being a wood window. It had a profile that looked like a wood window. That's the reason we went to them. That and the fact that they were way more energy efficient than what we have. The windows that I use now that are going into homes that are in the infill district that we're developing in our affordable program, those windows exceed the national requirement for energy by several numbers, the way they rate them. So that was the reason we went to it. Now, we've redone several elevations on Main Street already. The building at 614, that was a new build that we did for the Marr family, those windows are vinyl. The boxing gym, when we redid that, and I'll give you some, this is how this all comes down to play. We had a $16,000 budget to redo the front of that building, okay? This particular construction on this building is going to run somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.5 million. So that tells you I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend to renovate a whole facade, which was 38 foot wide and 25, 26 foot tall. When we started looking at it, we had no other option. Otherwise, it would have not gotten renovated. I look at the wood windows, okay? Wood windows, and let's go over pricing. Right now, let's take, for example, those windows right there in the middle photograph. Those are about a 6 foot tall window, and they're about 3 foot wide, and they're sashed in the middle, which means they're operable. So there is a profile there when you look at it. There are no grids as far as divided lights, but we do have the profile in the window with the frame because the window operates, so it has to have a profile. That window would cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of about $275, okay, the window itself. That same window with the same energy efficiency in the aluminum window would be about twice that. And if I got a wood window to match it, it would be 3 to 4 times, okay? That's why you don't see a whole lot of wood windows, is because they're usually outside the budget that we have to spend. Now, the funny thing about a wood window is when we put it in, the interior is wood, but the exterior is either aluminum or vinyl, okay? So it's clad. So what's going to cause the vinyl to diminish over a period of time? The elements. Well, if a vinyl frame is going to deteriorate, so is the cladding. So did we improve what we're talking about here? No, I don't think we did. I don't think we did. I think that we have to, and I do agree with her that, yeah, it would be a whole lot more historical if we could do that. But when we're renovating these buildings, we've got all kinds of cost constraints, we've got building code constraints, and there's just going to be things that we're not going to be able to comply and make it historical in every case. It is an attempt to get it as close as possible with the amount of money that the developer has to spend. And whether we like to think it or not, the budget is a crucial part of the reconstruction and the redevelopment of downtown. And so if we don't want to recognize that, so be it. But then development may slow down if we start requiring some things that are extremely expensive for us to do. This building's got a lot of windows, and if you look at the front elevation of the windows on the front elevation on the second floor all have to be redone, and they are multiple units. So we'll have an operable unit with a fixed glass unit, a transom, that's going to be molded to the top of it. Those windows are probably close to 10 foot tall, I would say. Somewhere in that neighborhood, 9 to 10 foot tall. So that's our reason for wanting to use the vinyl. It's easier to get. The house that's being built next door to me is using Anderson vinyl clad wood windows. He waited over 26 weeks for delivery on his windows.
Wow.
And when the 26 weeks rolled around, they told him it's going to be 3 more. So 26 weeks is 6 months that it took to get those windows in. I had a conversation with Kevin Hempkins, who redeveloped the Blackbird across the street, about the windows he put in there, because I really like those windows. Those are steel, and we don't even want to discuss what they cost. And Kevin said, I will never, ever use them again. 8 months it took to get the windows for that building. So we have time constraints that we have to deal with, and there's another reason that we use, and it's better with the aluminum and the vinyl than it is anything else. The wood ones it's just going to take a lot longer to get them and cost a whole lot more to manufacture them. So our reasoning is budget. We're trying to keep things under control. If the commission says or the board says no, then we have to live with it and something else has to go. But we're not. I'm not here today to tell you that it's a deal breaker for us to have to change windows. But I do think that we need to use a little bit of common sense when we're looking at what we're doing. Any other questions?
What's been your experience on the lifespan of the vinyl windows?
We've been using them, and I thought about that a couple of days ago when I was going through the information that Donna sent me from the consultant. I know that we've been using them for 25, 30 years at this point in the stuff that I've been designing, the residential stuff I've been designing. I had concerns about them initially when we started using them because it gets really hot in here, okay? So, yeah, I was concerned that the sun would have an adverse effect on the windows themselves. I've not had to replace anything, nor do I know anybody that has. Now, I know that one of the problems with aluminum windows is that the seals break, the windows will start sweating, they create problems with that. But at this point, I can't answer that question because I've not had any experience with having to replace them. So I don't know. I would assume that the warranty on them is probably 10 to 20 years is what I would figure the manufacturer would warranty it for. But I don't know that either. It would depend on
Put
the
them in a house I
brand.
redid in Van Alstyne, they were 20-year windows.
Yep.
Incredible. I didn't live there 20 years, so.
Yep. Yeah, so we don't know.
So you looked at aluminum and vinyl, correct?
Yes.
Those two. We personally put in some windows that is renewal by Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't cheap. 40% wood fiber. This is on the exterior, 40% wood fiber combined with 60% of a polymer base.
Mm-hmm.
But the inside are 100% wood.
Wood. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody else makes those kind of windows.
I don't know of
Other than
anybody.
renewal by Anderson, would
Yeah.
that be an option?
And of course, Anderson's the top of the line.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson's the Bentley of the window business. And, so I couldn't tell you, over my 40-year career, I'll bet you we haven't spec'd Anderson windows on more than 3 or 4 jobs. There's other Marvin and other companies that are equally as good, in our opinion, that are a lot less
A lot less
expensive.
expensive. I wonder if there's something comparable with another company other than
It's
Anderson
possible.
that would
It's
have that
possible.
wood fiber base that would get you
Yep.
something other than a vinyl.
And again, I would go back to the question on something that is, we all know that wood don't have a real long lifespan. And the thing about wood, if it's not properly maintained on a regular basis, it will rot pretty quick. It won't last 20 years. So it has to be clad with something. the polymer or the composite materials, I don't know, you know. It's possible that they have an equally, you know, long life as, I mean, if we're looking at longevity, then the aluminum is the answer to the question. But the new aluminum windows they're more attractive than they were. They've come a long ways with those. And they've tried over the past couple of years to create a window that is more in line with the steel windows like Kevin used on the Blackbird. Because that window's so expensive that I think manufacturers felt like we'd come in a lot less and we're going to be similar in appearance, so we'll be able to market to those customers. So I don't know.
The building is non-contributing.
Say that again now?
The building is non-contributing, though older than 50 years, so what's the status of submitting for that?
So I didn't do all the information in this that I should have. I missed that. He pointed it out to me when he came, not by saying that I didn't, but by saying he had a picture. Do you have that picture? It'll take her a second to change over, but I didn't add one of Brian Hander's pictures and the information on the building, so I don't know if it is or not. We may be able to look that up, but if it's non-contributing, they can sometimes be brought back to the contributing status. So it's eligible for contributing status if it's not too far off what, you know, the original.
As the new guy, is there any difference in the tax incentive there from the staff, whether you use vinyl or aluminum clad? Do you gain anything in terms of being exactly historic within the guidelines?
So you're not eligible if you don't go by the guidelines, and so you wouldn't be eligible with vinyl windows, but you may be able to get the state credit on this, but you're not going for the federal credits, are you?
So I suspect he hasn't done it, and I have no idea what it was. I know what it is when we did our house, but the delta between the tax incentive credit with aluminum clad wood versus the vinyl, I don't know if that would offset it at all, or something to bring back to the owners.
Right. I know that sometimes you can get that state that it's just automatic without having to
I don't think he's even considered tax credits, to be honest with you. I don't think he has.
What about local facade grants? Is that being considered?
No, well, he talked about that. He asked me at one time if there was still the facade grant that was in place. Now, we are taking advantage of the fire sprinkler grant that's in there. But we didn't spend a whole lot of time considering it, you know.
You can talk to Tony.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
And the second question.
And I mean, this would be a building where the front and the back would qualify. And there's a lot of square footage because it's measured on the linear footage.
Yeah, he's definitely got
Yeah.
a lot of space
Yeah.
and probably get the
Yeah,
max
yeah, he
out
would,
of it.
which I think is what, 25,000 on the front
Yes.
and.
Well, it's 25,000 total.
So the
Is it?
second question I would
I
have
thought it was
is there,
25,000 on the front elevation and 7,000 on the side and rear
No, it's 25,000
total.
second question I would ask is there precedent? I know from when I started coming to the Travelers Hotel, for example, and the tremendous effort that they are going through for their windows, and you already mentioned the Katy Depot. What is this board allowed or not allowed on the street here previous? We've heard about Blackbird.
I
but
can
don't
tell
know.
you that we have not always done our diligence with windows, and so we can just follow our guidelines now. And, you know, he mentioned some buildings that had used vinyl, and, you know.
But this is a non-contributing
Currently.
situation.
Well, I don't think it matters if the building is contributing or non-contributing. you know, we have our guidelines and,
Sure.
and
And
that's,
he's gonna get any tax incentives. If. It doesn't matter if he's contributing or not contributing, does it? If he's in the historic district.
so
it
the
does
tax
matter?
credit,
It does
So if it's
matter.
non-contributing, he does not.
do you want to come up? Okay.
We don't buy.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, do you know about the state tax credits? The 10% is what, is it federal?
So that you, even if it's not contributing in state, you cannot qualify for it.
Hmm.
And if there's a percentage of it being commercial versus residential, that stipulates what that tax credit amount is.
So just to make sure I understand, what I hear you saying, if this is non-contributing, there is no tax credit.
No, and they have to, is that financially, does it help them?
Exactly.
You know, a lot of times those tax credit projects have to be of such a high dollar amount to make it worthwhile.
You know, the
Well,
tax credit program on the renovation of the Denison Hotel is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Mhm. I'm just wondering, 1.5
But-
million counts.
But I don't know that 1.5 is a big deal in,
Yeah,
as
that's
far
what
as
I
they're
mean.
concerned.
I don't know.
It's
if
a big
that's-
deal, don't
it's
get me
not.
wrong, but
It typically isn't, that's not enough to make it,
Just for my own info, what's the threshold? 5, 10?
yeah, at least 2.5.
Okay.
so, okay, so if you look to the far right, okay, there's just a little piece of 506. Okay, now what you're looking at on the corner is where that's the antique mall. Okay, so the demising, you can see where the facade kind of jumps up a little bit right there at 506, the separation point. Okay, so if you look at those windows, what you've got up there now are aluminum windows that were replacement windows. Okay, and they're your typical ugly thin, and some of them are broken, so they got to go. But those were wood windows with a transom on the top and casement windows. Now, we ran into the same casement windows down at what's the yellow building? Is that 214? Yeah. We ran into the same windows up there, and they're really cool. They're still in there, but they have absolutely no weather stripping, no energy. I mean, wind come right around them. They're strictly for looks. So, and I noticed in here, well, they'll let you go in and put storm windows in there, but I mean, I can't think of anything uglier than a storm window is. So I wouldn't dare put that on a building. But so we could go back in, and I could pretty closely recreate exactly what this is. And this morning was the first time I've seen this, and Councilman Hander sent this to me. The transoms are gone, and that's where they've taken the storefront glass all the way up, so we know that storefront glass is not historical, it's a replacement thing. And you can tell by looking at it, it's not historical, but we could recreate that. Now, we had planned on using the black frames, because that seems to be the trend right now, which trends scare me, but I think showing the owner this, I think we could go back to exactly use the white frame, just like he did, or they did on this, and recreate that. Now, those transoms that are above, those are wood as well. But again, we'd have to have them, they're gonna all have to be special made for this particular building, so. I know I can get special made windows in all three. It's just a matter of, can I afford two of the three? I know one of the three is gonna be out, so.
Well, Mr. Steer, there's no question but that the economic viability and the function of the building with what is proposed would be hugely better. The facade on the ground is not particularly attractive or precious as it is now.
And it will eventually be redone. But storefront glass is highly expensive. We don't measure it in the price of a window. We measure that in square foot numbers. And so it's way more expensive. So, you know, we wanted to redo all of the glazing across the front. We just didn't, I mean, we're already $300,000 over budget on the thing. So, you know, we picked the wrong time with lumber being where it's at and cost of materials being where they are. And so, you know, we have, in this particular building, we're gonna have to, you know, go in and take some concrete out and replace some, you know, some concrete that's cracked and stuff, you know. So there's a lot of demo and a lot of renovation stuff that's gotta be done before the building's even functional. Ms. Floyd's decided that we've gotta add some more restrooms downstairs, so that caused my budget to go up too, so. Anyway, you know, we can stand here and argue about this all day long, but I guess my question is, how many people can drive up and down Main Street, look at every window in this on Main Street, and tell me what they're made out of?
It's interesting that you made that point, because I thought maybe it would be relevant for all of us to take a little walking field trip down the street and look at the different window materials. I
mean,
would certainly be.
I mean, it's, especially when you're doing 25, 30 miles an hour, or like Donna, 40.
Well, I would be amenable to just kind of a survey of what window materials are out there, old and new.
I mean, you know, you've heard my argument and my reasoning, and you know, this is up to you guys. So, I mean, we will have to comply with whatever you say. But I just think when you look at the common sense of the situation, and I just don't see a whole lot of difference in what we're talking about here, because obviously the wood window is going to be clad. It's going to have vinyl on the outside of it. It's not going to have aluminum. It's going to have vinyl on the outside of it. So I'm still going to have to deal with vinyl over a 20-year period, regardless.
So I did find the building, and I apologize for not including that in there. It's just an oversight. It is a contributing building.
Oh, it is?
It
It is.
Okay.
And that was, it was by both surveys. So, you know, we had a survey in 2013 that we didn't agree with all their judgments, but it was by that one and by the other one. So I would say that it certainly is a contributing building. It says, despite alterations to the storefronts, the building retains integrity and clearly communicates its historic commercial function and the era in which it was constructed, rendering it contributing to the district.
Okay, now, same question then.
Yeah, so then it does qualify for state and federal. 25% state tax credit, 20% federal tax credit, and it has to be income producing, so it can't be residential.
That's if it's a tax credit project,
If
right?
it's a tax credit.
But if it's not a tax credit project, it qualifies for 10% federal.
Federal, yeah.
So there is a tax incentive to be with the recommendation.
That means that the developer application has to be started and approved before any work can take place. So if that's something they want to do, they can't remove anything, they can't do anything until the state approves.
I'll answer that question for you.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
ain't gonna
yeah,
do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big undertaking.
That's only if you.
But that
go
is a
for
choice.
20% tax credit,
For 25%.
yes, but you can get the 10% without doing all.
Regardless.
that.
I mean, realistically, how long would that take to get, Mary, if they apply for it?
A little bit of time.
Yeah. Well,
6 months, 3 months?
It can take a long time.
He's not
1
gonna
year?
wait that long.
Yeah.
He's not going to. I mean, we've been working on this project now for over a year to get to the point where we are. He's got tenants that are ready to sign leases. He's not gonna do that. It's just not gonna be beneficial to him enough. You know, I will say that I agree with, that is I think one of the prettiest buildings on Main Street, from the corner all the way down to where CJ's is. And one of the first things I told Ernie when we started working on the building, I says, we cannot do anything. I refuse to do anything with the brickwork on this building. It's beautiful, and it's in good shape. unlike some other brick buildings we've got on Main Street. So, you know, we knew we were gonna preserve that, but we knew we were gonna have to replace the windows on the upper level. We knew that too, so, yeah.
So it's safe to assume then that the renovations that you propose would then result in the building no longer being contributing? Do we know that at the
a good
front
question.
end?
I don't think we know that.
That depends on what it.
Well, the bottom floor will be commercial. And now, and if it says it has to be income producing, wouldn't be leasing the loft?
That's just for the tax credit.
Okay,
That's not
okay,
contributing versus not contributing. It depends on the material and design and what our ordinances state. You know, the guidelines are guidelines.
Exactly.
The ordinance is mandated, so there's a difference there.
And I don't think our ordinance specifies, at least last time I read it, right?
I'm not familiar on that.
I mean, seriously, the only facade changes that are being made to the front is where we're gonna have to add that panel for the FDC. Again, fire department's not, they don't give a rip about historical preservation. They're more concerned about
About safety.
safety. And I think I could go ahead and make this statement, Ms. Floyd, back me up. Staff in the city is be damned that fire is gonna happen again on Main Street. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are going to the extremes to make sure that don't happen.
Yeah, we're pushing.
So there isn't gonna be no leadway around what the fire department's asking me to do, nor should there be. So that's really, in replacing the windows, that's the only facade changes we're making on the front. Now, the back, Lord, it needs some changes.
I don't think the back is.
It's
No,
hideous.
the
Concern
back
at all.
is hideous, and all that you discussed,
Yeah.
at least in my opinion, is an improvement to that, and it also is, most of it is essential for the function of what the building will become anyway.
And I'll go as far as saying this, if the board, if it's the board's pleasure, we would consider, if you would let us, do vinyl across the back, and we could do aluminum across the front.
That was gonna be my conditional motion.
Aluminum
Well,
clad.
No, I wouldn't do aluminum clad, I would just do an aluminum window. I think she said the aluminum window was permissible.
Aluminum clad, I think is what it says.
Well, what does she call an aluminum clad? Does she want a wood window with aluminum cladding on it? That would be a wood window, not an aluminum window.
Aluminum clad wood is a good replacement material.
Yeah.
Aluminum should be baked, Kynar finish, not anodized.
Right, which is what we would do. It would be black.
On the front.
But the profile of the aluminum window would be very similar to the wood window and very similar to the vinyl window. The wood window is going to have just a little bit more width around the outer edges, maybe by as much as maybe inch and a half.
Yeah, when we did ours, we had to do that.
Typically, you've got about a 3-inch dimension, okay? And the vinyl window is going to be about a 2-inch.
Yep.
So there's an inch. Now, if you can stand out there at the street and look up there and tell me I can see where the inch is, then you're a better man than I am.
But if we were to come to you and say, hey, yeah, back, you got it, it really looks good, but on the condition to follow these recommendations for the front, how do you think your folks would be?
Well, I wouldn't do wood. I don't think we can do that. I would be willing to do aluminum, an aluminum window that will meet the energy criteria, okay? It's gonna have a nice profile. It's not gonna weather. We don't have to worry about whether or not 20 years down the road they get to be replaced. So that I would be willing to entertain. And then across the back, I don't see any sense in us spending a huge amount of money on an alley, even though it has a name. It's still an alley with a dumpster sitting there, so.
Yeah. But I want to be sure that we're all straight there. Ms. Dow, I know that you're eagerly, quickly texting there, but that text from the rosin thing they talked about the extra bevels, and I don't know the names of the other things there to get the shape of what the old is. Could you do that?
Well, we're not doing grids. We're doing a
No,
one-over-one.
I'm not talking about grids.
So, But I think that's what she's talking about. In the divided light segments of of a wood window, it's on the exterior of the glass. On a lot of, and it's that way on a lot of vinyl windows as well.
Yeah, I think it's more on the frame, if I remember right.
Most of the windows will put it on the inside between the two pieces of glass, okay? But there are manufacturers that make the grid and it's on the outside.
Yep.
Okay, and you have to unscrew the grid and take it out to change the glass if it should break. So it will mimic and replicate the wood window closer
Yeah.
than the standard vinyl window would. But I'm not using any grids, I'm using a 1/1, which I think she was
She did.
okay with.
Yes, she did. Yeah, but there was something on the edges of the window. I don't know the.
Yeah, so, it says it's less about the configuration and more about the dimensions of the parts of the window. Historic windows have depth to them. Each part of the window has its own dimension that vinyl windows cannot replicate. The National Park Service does not allow vinyl to be used in tax credit projects because the replacement windows cannot replicate the historic feel of the historic windows. So when we advise clients about replacements, we say that the windows should have simulated putty bevels where glass meets the sash, a panning system that replicates the historic brick mold, and frame and sash dimensions that match the existing windows, or if the historic sash dimensions that match the existing window, or if the historic windows are not extant, dimensions that match the historic windows typical of this type of building. Vinyl windows are also not known to last. They'll probably be replaced in about 15 years.
Two things that she mentioned in there. She mentioned the putty and she mentioned brick mold. Brick mold is wood. Okay, so if it's not painted, it will rot. Okay? Number one, the putty, over a period of time, is going to dry, crack, and fall out. We've seen it before. It happens on old wood windows. You walk by them, I guarantee you there's some on Main Street that you can go by and it's happened to them. So, you know, I know where she's coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with her. That's my stance on it. So.
Well, we can have a debate separate from this about wood windows. I mean, I think it's a relevant subject because it came up today, but as far as our design guidelines, you know, you can read them for yourself here. It's light materials. And, you know, whether or not we want to change that, we had a specialist in wood windows come several years ago. Did you go to that?
Bob Yap.
Yeah, Bob Yap. And he dispelled a lot of myths and gave a lot of information. He was an expert. I refer to that because, you know, you get a little bit and it's way over my head. So I can't argue the point. I just know what our guidelines say. And I know that the district having a contributing building is what we're here to preserve. And so I'm waiting on an answer from our consultant if that will in fact, you know, render it non-contributing.
That'd be my last question.
But I want you to think about something. You're looking at 506. There's those three windows up there. See how tall those are? Okay, there's 9 of those across the front of the building. So they're all gonna have to be special made because of the opening size. They're not a standard opening. So we're gonna have to have every one of those gonna have to be a special made window. And my hand is forced into wood. That's gonna be a real expensive.
Charlie, are those 9 windows wood now?
No, they're aluminum.
You said aluminum, okay.
Yeah, they're old, you know, thin profile aluminum. Yeah, they were probably put in the late 50s, early 60s, somewhere along in there probably.
It sounded like we had a workable solution a little bit ago, separating the back from the front.
Well, my only question now, and I think that's what Don is checking, is if we don't go to the aluminum clad wood for the front, does that make this building non-contributing? And if it makes it non-contributing, then I would say our job is to keep things contributing. I have no problem with the back.
But as far as our design guidelines go, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing right now with your proposal, right? Everything's okay?
I mean, as far as using the wood windows, the wood-clad windows?
Or the vinyl?
Vinyl.
She, in her information, she referred to our 7.1.6, our guidelines.
The bottom of the first page there for us.
Yeah, and so she was okay with the changes he had
Yeah.
said to the rear, but the other, she was referring to 7.1.6.
For the front.
Well, she didn't specify.
So then what we're discussing as a potential resolution would result only in a cost increase for what you were doing on the front, because we're saying the back is fine as proposed, correct?
Yes.
So you'd be looking at a solution for the front that would be substantially more expensive?
If you make me go with wood, absolutely.
Well, let's say
Substantial.
it wasn't wood though.
If it was aluminum, I would say we're probably gonna get a 40 to 50% increase in the price over what we would have to spend for
On
the
the-
same thing done in vinyl.
On the front.
Yeah, yeah.
And the only way they can get the tax credit is if they've done this prior to any work. They can't get it subsequent.
And you and your client are probably not gonna be seeing
No.
that in any scenario,
No, he's
correct?
not, no.
They don't wanna wait.
Yeah,
He-
so
he
we
can't wait.
can leave
I
that
mean,
out of
he's-
our,
You know, where the bank is waiting on us, Betty's waiting on us. I've already met with her a couple times on permit application. We're ready to go. I mean, we've done numbers, we've got contracts, pretty well ready to sign. So, no, he is over anxious to pull the trigger and get this project going. And we're over anxious for him to get it going because I want to see occupants in both floors, not just vacancies.
Will his tenants be in before you do those upper windows? Just curious.
We're going to do the whole thing simultaneously.
Okay.
Now, there's not nearly the amount of construction to be done on that ground floor. But the problem is a logistics issue as to how do we get the materials into the second floor. And right now, I think that was an old car dealership at one time, and the service department was on the second floor. So there was a lift, and the lift opening is still there. So that's our goal is we'll bring the material in, forklift it up, put it up into the upper level so that they can get to it, because we're talking sheetrock and lumber mainly. That's the two things that are gonna be the biggest problem to get up there. So, once we pull the trigger on everything, we're gonna permit all of it at the same time. And we'll start construction, we'll start demo first. We've got the old elevator thing that's the shaft and everything's gotta come out. So there's quite a bit of demo work that's gonna have to be done.
So, what I tried to get the consultant, and I can't reach her right now, I think there's like not a consensus on anything, because we need some more information. I would propose that we leave the windows off so they can get the building permit, and, Betty, if the windows aren't part of the first, we approved everything else, that wouldn't stop them from getting that permit?
Mm-hmm.
As long as you show that there are windows there.
Oh, they're there, they're called out, so, as far as egress is concerned, so you guys can see it. And that's another thing too, the reason we're
So
doing
it
all
would
this
be,
is because
it would be
want some accessible, even though we've had.
Fire
that
suppression
side
in the
egress.
front, in the rear.
But-
Yeah, so the entry door, fire suppression on the front, windows on the rear facade,
And the
and
new
not the
entry.
upper story, not the front.
Charlie, I don't mean to ask a question that's naive or might indicate that I'm not paying attention, but I understand what the rear facade in toto will look like. But the only rendering that I have of the front facade is this one and the old one. So tell me, when it's done as you propose, how much different?
That's it. That's the only difference on the ground floor.
The only difference on the ground floor from what is now there is this entrance.
That's all we're changing on the ground floor. The only thing that's changing on the upper level is the windows. The brickwork, we're not painting anything, we're not changing anything, it's gonna be exactly as is.
So if, I'm looking at Donnie here now and speaking for myself, not the rest of my board members, but if there were to be a motion to talk about approve of the entry door, the fire suppression on the front, the windows on the rear facade, would that get them going?
I proposed that could, and they could get their building permit, and we wouldn't hold them up, and then we would feel more comfortable in making the decision on the windows.
And what I would really want to know is what their recommendations are, and if, would this make the building non-contributing if we don't do?
I think we can contact the historical commission staff, and they'll be able to give us an answer.
Okay.
I think by the end of the day, tomorrow, sometime pretty fast.
Okay. So in that case, we could, on the next meeting, then talk about the rest of it.
Without holding.
I just sent the owner a text. Let's see if he responds quickly and see if he's agreeable to do the wood windows on the front with the cladding.
Well, unless there's any other questions on what I would propose there, Mr. Chairman, is that we hold this for right now, this meeting, move on to the last one, and then come back and see if the,
And see if you hear from him.
You just wanna hold this and kind of table it and go to
Yeah, we
item
can,
F?
sure.
There's no motion, so we don't have to table anything. We're just gonna table any action on this
Okay,
until, and then move on to the next one and then come back.
So procedurally, we're simply pausing this part of
Correct.
the agenda.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience over there.
It's interesting to me.
It is.
There's a lot, so.
Well, let's go ahead.
Somebody finds it interesting.
Well,
Charlie's like-
there are multi-dimensions to
Yeah.
this,
All right.
multi-dimensions.
Okay. So we'll
maybe
move
you'll
on
hear
to
back.
item F then. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to install a metal sign with vinyl graphics and lettering at 114 West Woodard.
So this is Moxie Graphics, and he's proposing a sign covering the sign frame from the previous sign and window graphics. And his wife is here to answer any questions.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
My name is Jeannie Duarte. I am representing Moxie Graphics at 114 West Woodard. And our building's not really that historic, but we want to keep up the appearance, obviously. The sign that we're proposing is basically just to affix to the existing frame that's there. And the frame is a little bit, it's wood on the outer edge, the interior structure is metal, so we're proposing to basically reface that sign with modern sign materials, which is aluminum composite material with graphics on the face of it. We are actually proposing additionally some dimensional graphics that would sit off of the face. So if you go back to that, you'd see some of the lettering there would be in cut PVC mounted to the face so that it does give it a little bit of dimension.
But it's the same size.
Yes, that is the same size.
It will be mounted, you said, on the existing sign that's already there?
As long as it's structurally sound. It's wood around, it's like a wood edging, so if that wood is breaking down at all, we'll have to replace the wood on it.
Okay.
not nearly as interesting as the previous, no windows.
Well, I
But
think
it's
it-
important.
I think it probably goes without saying that these colors aren't in the deck, right?
I didn't check because we haven't really gone signage on the deck.
The building is certainly off of the visuals of the street. I assume from.
Ugly
looking-
is okay to say, it's,
No, and
Historic. Vintage.
oh, vintage, yeah.
vintage is good. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that it's non-contributing, and no offense, not likely to be. And given that, though, I am quite certain that there would be folks who would say, excuse me, where did those colors come from? I mean, I think you might want to be prepared for that reaction, but that would be my input.
How did you choose your colors?
Just our brand preference.
Is it okay?
Mhm.
For the new guy here, do colors on the sign have to be from the approved palette?
We have authorized signs before that had colors that deviated from the palette because it was the logo, the business message of the owner of the building. The answer to that is yes. We
Okay.
have. And this is in fact your business logo.
Yes, and
correct?
I'll,
Branding.
Branding.
you can, wow, can't see my phone. I don't know if it would help, but if you were to pull up our website, and I can just do this, it'll be obvious once I pull it up. Oh, it doesn't show it as well on here. So this is our website, and it does use those vivid colors. Mainly because it's graphics based, so we have the bright colors. But that being said, you know, we would certainly not want to detract from the neighborhood, but we do graphics so we can adjust as needed.
I assume there's no plan to paint the awning?
I would love to paint the awning. It's
I'm
just,
saying,
oh,
that's yet another
there
color
are-
decision, isn't it?
There are many things with the face of that building, but this is our first time having to come to a historic preservation committee, so we thought maybe we needed a sign first, considering we've been there a year and we do signs.
Probably a good sign, probably a good call, a very good call.
So do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the addition of a signage at 114 West Woodard.
Second, Anderson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you. We'll
Good
be
luck.
back.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's got the phone in his
Do we
ear.
want to do staff updates while we wait, or maybe?
Sure, yes.
Maybe we're ready. Okay. Okay, thanks, Charlie.
The wood windows will be aluminum clad. We've got a 26-week wait to get them.
Okay.
I just called and talked to the guy, and he said, yeah, we can do a wood window, aluminum clad. And this wasn't the owner. The owner still hadn't answered me, so I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb, and we'll go ahead and agree to do it. But 26 weeks, 6 months project will be pretty close to finished by the time we get windows. So
What about just regular aluminum windows?
we can probably get those a lot quicker. Those are probably gonna still be probably somewhere around 8 to 10 week turnaround.
How does the board feel about aluminum windows on the front, not on the back?
I guess my only my question would be, does that make it non-contributing?
Well,
That's what we,
don't have that answer here today. And my concern would be that it certainly detracts from it. So absent offering that piece of advice, guidance, whatever, I don't feel comfortable deciding on the window.
yeah, but I would like to be able to get it as soon as we can for them. I mean, I'm business friendly, I want to do it, but our charge is a historic preservation, so.
Absolutely, we'll get the answer quickly. It's just, I don't want to hold him up even if we didn't schedule another meeting, you know, you meet every 2 weeks. Well, I don't want to hold him up 2 more weeks from getting his building permit and.
Ordering materials.
If you order those, the ones that you can get within 8 to 10 weeks, can you cancel? That's just how it is.
We haven't ordered.
No, they're all
we haven't ordered
custom.
yet.
Yeah,
We don't
they're
order
custom.
until permit, yeah, that's when we order.
They're custom made too, yeah.
Okay.
So we would order, after today, we'll go ahead and submit for permit. I usually don't like to order until after the permit's issued, because if there's something happens and we have to change a size or we have to change a window, then, you know, then we're in trouble. So typically, when the permit gets pulled, that's when I go ahead and put the order in. But 26 weeks, that's gonna destroy the project. I mean, I'd say destroy, it wouldn't destroy it. I mean, we could go ahead and carry on, but the problem is that the tenants are not gonna wait 6 months for us to start. And so, you know,
Can you all agree possibly to a motion that, if staff, by the end of the week, to have an answer on the non-contributing, contributing status, and then you can make a motion and a vote, via email?
Or I was even going to make it conditional that if a yes, in other words, it does not make it if it doesn't make it non-contributing, then move forward without having to meet again. That would be the condition that I would put in.
And as long as
Totally.
Donna lets you all know what that.
I don't even think she has to let us know, it's just if the decision is that it's not
If the
non-contributing.
issue of contributing is not in fact an issue, then
Press.
we would be prepared to move ahead, correct?
I would even give them permission to move ahead if the answer is that it would not make it non-contributing, double negative intended. If you see what I mean.
And so we can word a motion in that way? I would second a motion worded that way.
Now you're gonna make me try to figure this out.
right now, so we,
All right,
but
okay,
since.
we'll
but-
try to do that here.
but
This
since
may be
it-
a work in progress if we're ready, if we're at that point.
I'm ready when you are.
Since it has aluminum windows now, and not the original windows, does that change anything that we've talked about?
Oh, good question.
Replacing same.
Looking her, nod her head north-south.
That is a good
As if we only need another, if we only need another complication.
That's a really good question.
Pardon?
It looks at a period of significance when it was considered contributing and what it was like at that point in time.
So in that case, you could almost say it doesn't make a difference, because the decision, the time period we're talking about, the contributing period, is the historic time.
That's correct.
It was contributing in 2013 with aluminum windows,
Oh,
With the windows that were there.
So what I don't like to do as a general rule is take it farther from contributing. Whether or not it's contributing or not,
Indeed.
I never like to approve or see approved taking it farther from contributing than it is currently.
in other words, just maintain. This is gonna be a heck of a motion.
Write your motion so we can,
Yes, go ahead.
no, you're supposed to write it so we can.
What's your motion?
Can we have two motions? One to deal with the fire suppression and the, I'm looking over here, one to deal with the fire suppression in the rear and the front? Or does it need to be the, just one? Since it is one just agenda item, that's right, open meeting. Okay, Madam Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the addition of an entry door and fire suppression system on the front, windows on the rear facade and upper story, and on the condition that the front aluminum-clad windows do not make the building non-contributing, that we approve the proposal for 506 to 510 West Main.
Back up because you used the word aluminum clad.
Okay.
That's already approved. It would be full aluminum.
Okay?
And I'm not sure the entrance on the back was included in the motion too, but obviously that would be as well.
Okay, let me try it again then, because I know she's trying to copy it. I would make a motion to approve the addition of an entry door and fire suppression system on the front, windows on the rear facade of the upper story,
An entrance on the back of
506 to 510, and conditional approval if the requested windows on the front do not make the building non-contributing, that we approve this proposal for 506 to 510 West Main.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so we really don't even need to revisit this.
Unless it does make it non-contributing.
Assuming that the contributing status is not affected.
Affected. Now, does that give, to go approach the Historic Preservation Commission and the expert staff? I know you're looking at each other.
They approved the back windows, so that's where you're gonna create new openings. You've already got the openings on the front, so you should be able to approve the building or consider the building permit, and then the windows will know soon, or you could, consider it separate.
We could do that, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's already got the approval as long as it doesn't make it non-contributing.
And, yeah, building permits could proceed assuming that. That works, right?
Trying to help.
I'm okay with the aluminum clad, but where you're gonna kill the project is the time element that it's gonna take to get.
Okay.
Because we can't sit around and wait 6 months.
Yep.
For windows.
Absolutely.
And so we're at a stalemate is where we are.
Until we get this.
We're at a stalemate regardless of what the answer to this question is.
Okay.
We're at a stalemate. Because even you come back and you say, no, you have to use the wood windows aluminum clad. So be it. It's 6 months.
But I thought
Okay.
we were saying that we might be accepting the windows that are extant. Is that not what
Only
with that?
if it doesn't affect its conformity.
Exactly, but that could in
But
fact
if
be
you
the
come back,
result.
It's, you know, we're doomed because we don't have 6 months to wait. That's the problem. We don't have 6 months to wait.
But if it's a contributing or not contributing, it was gonna be that length of time anyway, wouldn't it?
Well, I can't see where an aluminum window would affect its contributing factors.
Well, that was my
They're
point
already
of my
there.
question a while ago, if it
Yeah,
has,
that to me
if
is-
it was a contributing
That's-
building in 2013, shouldn't it still be now? That's why we worded it the way we did, to try to give you some relief.
If that's the case, if they come back and go, well, no, I mean, they're already aluminum, everything on it's aluminum. You know, so, the difference is, these are ugly aluminum, we'll go back to
Even leaving it
some
open.
really.
Good-looking aluminum. Yeah, I would,
You know,
I would hope as long,
So my feeling is,
I would hope that when we present it, that it is only making better what it was. It's just, as of 2013, when it was still contributing. And I understand, Donna, Ms. Dow, your, and I believe they're very good ones, statements about not having creeping incrementalism on moving away from the historic nature of our.
I'm just concerned that we're not being business friendly. I want us to be business friendly here.
So I'd say the motion stands, and then I know hopefully we can find out this week, and as long we don't have to meet again. I think if I remember right, now I'm looking over here, is if we have to meet again, we just need to give 72-hour notice to have a,
It's called meeting.
yeah, to call a meeting to, No, we have to meet to cuss and discuss this again.
But just gotta have an emergency.
Yeah. I don't know if I can clarify the emergency.
And I do in fact think, looking at everybody, that this is a situation where, one, we do want to be business friendly, and two, it's an opportunity for all the entities that are involved in making the best decision for our district and our community to come together on the decision, because there is a way, I think, to get to yes that doesn't mean wood and windows, I think. And it is the opportunity for all of us to work together to come to a situation that makes sense for everybody, including time frame and the integrity of the business on this street.
And quite frankly, to make a statement to whoever comes after you, that we are trying to work with them to make this growing city business-friendly and still retain the historic
And I
aspect.
think everybody knows what we've agreed to as far as function and moving forward, yes?
Okay. Just don't make it Thursday or Friday, I'll be here. All right.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Okay,
That's 2 in a row.
all right, let's move on to staff updates, item 4 on our agenda.
So the only update I have is that Ms. Anderson and I were not able to go to Austin to the conference, but we did attend virtually, and I feel like it was a good experience, and we're going to talk more about what we learned.
Awesome.
That's all.
That's a great conference.
It was
If I would've known you were
really,
just doing it virtually, you should have called.
it was really, really, really good. Every single session that I did was extremely informative, and a lot of them were, I just have to say for my own selfish edification, but a lot of them had real impact for historic tourism for us and how we might proceed with that and what kind of sites are viable for us with experiential historic tourism, which just kept coming up again and again and again. People don't just want to look at a building. They want they want an experience. They want to have done something. And that was really compelling in a lot of the presentations. And I thought it was great. And I have to say, I was looking forward to going to Austin, but I can also tell you from having participated in this 3-day event virtually, I can understand why a lot of people didn't want to go back to the office after COVID. Because it really does work, y'all. It really does work.
We have access to those. We do, and I'm sure, we could let y'all see them for 6 months. Is that the time frame?
And there was one, the last group session that we went to, which we attended, was one by a firm that's called Green. And they specialize in very, very, very high-end replication of interiors. And they are interested only, primarily, in replicating, to the extent that it can be done, interiors. And the last presentation was slides of beautiful, beautiful interiors in Texas, of buildings of all sorts. And I would personally like to be able to look at the slides of those buildings again, Donna. And I went online and couldn't figure out necessarily how I could pull that chunk of it, but they were extraordinary.
Wow, just be sure Brian Hander sees it for the Smith Hotel.
And then there was also a very, very interesting presentation about the Dr. Pepper Museum in Waco and their initiative, a sort of affirmative action initiative, if you will, to convert their in-house soda fountain to reflect the sit-in movements.
Oh.
And they have erected this inclusive exhibit. You can either look at it, listen to it or not, or you can just go and sit down and have a Dr. Pepper just like back in the day or you can be educated about the sit-in movement in lunch counters. And I thought that was extremely impressive, and also an opportunity for corporate America stepped up and said, and they said it in their presentation, we have ownership in this, and we're going to present our part of the civil rights story. And that was really compelling. And I would never have thought about going to the Dr. Pepper Museum before, but I'm going to be going now. I'm very, very intrigued by it. So that's my report. And I can also recommend. Oh, I'm so sorry. But I can also recommend other sessions that I did that are worth looking at, I think.
That's wonderful.
It was great.
Well, thank you so much.
Donna's leading a webinar next week, in case you weren't aware of that. That's a staff update.
Well, tell us about it, Donna.
Tell me again.
I'm doing a Texas Downtown Association webinar on loft living development.
Excellent. Be sure to include the ones out there in 500 block.
Those are haunted, by the way, so they're gonna have real fun.
I should put that in there.
Yeah. The lofts that they're putting in are, it used to be a mortuary over there.
It's like in New Orleans, when you walk down, they say haunted or not.
And, you know, Brian, one of the things I was thinking about is as far as what places do we have that are experience potential, and a lot of it was using actors, right? And I'm thinking, well, we just need to get some ghosts up in Brian's tours, people jumping out and stuff. Just kind of an idea.
Either that or go
Sign a
to
waiver.
Oakview or whatever and go
Okay,
to
it
some of the
is
spots there.
1:32 p.m.